So yeah, I was a bit tilted today, and I kind of figured that I was going back and forth on whether or not to stream, so I decided, let's just blow off some steam, and let's just do something relaxing. And I remembered that I wanted to play Valhalla, so I thought we'll do that. But then I made the mistake of watching the evening news. And living on Turf Island during a pandemic is bad enough. But then you have to remember that the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is currently being run by dishwater swilling Tory fucks. It's very easy to be triggered by a lot of different things. We've had so many big issues, and obviously, you know, some countries like America are having it much worse than we are. If you can say that sort of thing. So there's been two stories today that really, really sort of pissed me off. This was the very latest one. I don't know if you can all see this. So, I know some of you obviously aren't going to be British. Basically, A-levels and GCSEs are our two main qualifications for school children. So, between about the ages of 14 and 16, you do your GCSEs. And then if you stay on at school post 16, you do your A-levels. And because of the pandemic, basically schools obviously haven't been open. And as is the case everywhere that's been in lockdown, it's really affected everyone's abilities to actually get their... just do their qualifications. And the big issue here has been the marking of the exams. So there was some back and forth about how it should be done to make sure that the system for giving people their qualifications, having been homeschooled, is done in a fair way to both the standards of the qualifications and obviously the students themselves. So there were two systems basically trying to run side by side. One was the one that ultimately seems to have won out, which is going on what the teachers of the individual students expected their grades to be. And then there was something else being run, which was what Boris Johnson is now calling the mutant algorithm. And it was basically a way of extrapolating sort of available data from previous year's qualifications, marked against other factors, to basically produce a grade. And what actually happened was here, especially amongst sort of lower class community schools, the grades were basically far lower than they would have expected based on what the teachers recommended. Now, as you would expect from a Conservative government, they basically washed their hands of the whole thing, blamed each other, blamed the schools. I don't think they blamed Jeremy Corbyn, but given the way that this government conducts itself, they may have tried it at some point. So, Boris Johnson blames mutant algorithm. Mutant algorithm, I would have assumed, would be like, the inbreeding that produces these people, but there we go. I mean, I've been tilted all day, but just look at the state of this. Like, you just feel your blood boiling just from looking at this. Credit where it's due, the tie is very nice, so we'll give him that. But I mean, what is this? This is basically what happens when you take a scarecrow and just pump it full of spam and sausage meat. And then, just roughly throw a suit onto it. Jesus Christ. This guy can launch our nuclear weapons. And I love this picture, actually, despite the fact how rage-inducing the central figure of this masterpiece is. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the UK media and the Tories tried to blame the heat. No, they would. They definitely would. Heat, as stars die, and they start to, go through their end stages, they turn into red giants. So I think that's possibly the best example of Jeremy Corbyn's tyranny that you can have. But, I mean, this picture is still a work of art, despite Boris. I think this young lady here is on ketamine. I don't blame her for that. If I had to do a photo shoot with Boris Johnson, I'd probably be loading up on whatever I can find. This young gentleman here is very excited and curious. And I think that's because this kid here is so desperate to escape from this situation, he's trying to open a portal to hell. Right-wing populism in the flesh. This is the man of the people. That's who Boris Johnson is. This is the guy who in 2019 managed to convince northern working class voters that he was the man who best represented their interests. I don't blame someone for being born into privilege necessarily. You don't. You can't choose where you're born, the family you're born into. Interesting bit of trivia about Boris Johnson, though, who was born Alexander de Fiffle Johnson, which is just perfect. He was actually born in America. So, I'm not a constitutional scholar or anything, but I believe that Boris is technically qualified to run for President of the United States. Send him back. Yeah, exactly, Morgan. So there is that. Mutant algorithm, which, I don't know. I still don't entirely know what that's supposed to mean. Let's have a quick read. Boris Johnson has blamed a mutant algorithm for his summer's exam results fiascos. I am afraid your grades were almost derailed by a mutant algorithm, and I know how stressful that must have been. He doesn't know how stressful that must have been. Replacement grades caused chaos and required changes to some results. In the fallout from the exam problems, the Department for Education's permanent secretary has been sacked. Well, you know that he has quite the rhetorical flourish. He's quite the orator. That's probably how he's convinced so many other men's wives into bed. I don't know. Maybe he's got those skills. So you've never actually managed to program a mutant algorithm. Speaking to pupils at a secondary school in Colville, Mr. Johnson empathised with the problems young people would face with their exam grades, but said he was very, very glad that it's finally been sorted. TLDR, it has not been sorted. The fury around it is gradually diminishing, possibly because everyone's just exhausted at this point. The Prime Minister said education was the great liberator, and the biggest risk for young people was not COVID-19, but continuing to be out of school. Now, I agree that we do want kids to go back to school as soon as it is safe and able. But I don't know if I would say that it's, in terms of immediate threats, I think the coronavirus still kind of has the edge. Okay, I didn't see this before. Mr. Johnson told pupils they needed to be in school to think about ideas and questions, such as, is Harry Potter sexist? The answer is no, by the way. Sorry, I just became very depressed for a second. Although that's pretty good representation of, again, the fact we're on Turf Island, that he's standing up for J.K. Rowling in some really abstract sense. Yeah, I can actually feel my soul dying as I talk. So there was that mention in there about the member of the Department of Education being sacked, the permanent secretary. So this is from the Evening Standard. This was published 33 minutes ago. The Department for Education's top civil servant is to stand down following this year's exam grades fiasco. Permanent Secretary Jonathan Slater will leave his post at the start of September after the Prime Minister concluded that there is need for fresh official leadership in the department. That's a really interesting line, because the person who's actually in charge of the Department of Education, Gavin Williamson, who is an MP, seems to be bulletproof, like he's actually invincible, because given the amount of pressure he's been under throughout this whole process, he's basically like Wolverine or something. It's actually incredible how much these people can get away with things. It's exhausting as well. Oh, look, the RNC. I might go into that in a little while, depending on how far I can take this. Yeah, but this is just agonising. And a lot has been happening just over the past couple of days. Initially, when I was thinking about maybe covering that this week, the big thing I wanted to focus on was this. Boris Johnson, during a pandemic, during the exams crisis, during like an unprecedented time of civil strife with things like Black Lives Matter, went on holiday to Scotland. Now, this isn't actually the first time he's done something like this. When the pandemic was starting to really kick into gear earlier this year, he basically wasn't around much at all. He basically left it to pretty much every other member of his cabinet to actually, you know, just keep things ticking over while tens of thousands of people were getting infected and dying, as you do. So basically what he was doing was he was up in Scotland on the Isle of Skye with his new wife and their new child, and they were staying in something like a £1,500 a month cottage. And there was this weird photo shoot that happened where they were trying to prove they were roughing it or something, like, you know, the pros do. And they had this tent set up. So here is an ordinary cottage that costs over £1,000 a week to live in. And then here's a very normal army tent, the sort of thing you would find in any sort of store. And then some logs. And two people who aren't Boris Johnson or his wife putting it up. And they hop this fence, and basically this geezer is the farmer of the land that this is on. So for a photo shoot, they basically pretended to not be staying in a cottage, and they abused someone else's land. And this is what our government's leader was concerning himself with while our exam system was falling apart. Oh shit, this just reminded me of the current Irish political scandal during lockdown. 81 government ministers, EU commissioners and judges attended a parliament golfing society meeting with no safety precautions. So absolutely no social distancing, I suppose, if you're out on the green, because you don't stand next to each other unless you've got a caddy, but Jesus Christ. Yeah, exactly, it wouldn't survive the Hebridean weather for long. But it doesn't matter though, that's the point though, because they're literally staying in this thing. So, I don't know. What can you say? I mean, obviously these sort of feelings and thoughts will be familiar to anyone pretty much anywhere, but especially in places which are being run by proto-fascists, like our country, like Brazil, obviously the United States. Just the sort of astonishing sort of mesh of undue confidence and complete incompetence. Just these whole things that sort of swivel, the colours change like a Rubik's Cube. And in some ways I kind of look at this stuff and think about it like I've just got out of a car crash or something. You know, I've never been in a car crash. I've heard stories. You know, you're not injured enough to be unconscious, but you sort of crawl out of the wreckage and you're just in shock and you just stare. And there's like the ringing in your ears and you just can't believe that any of this is real. Also, what's interesting is, excuse me, this is coming from the Daily Mail, which everyone, even if you're in the US, will know what this is. Far-right Tory rag, very hardline Brexit traditionally, hates minorities, especially brown people, women and trans people. Pretty standard sort of British newspaper, basically. At least it doesn't try to hide itself like The Guardian does. But they've actually been going really hard on the government during the COVID crisis, which I think has to do with the fact that their previous editor, Paul Dacre, resigned or retired last year. So that's something, that's progress, I guess. But at least it proves that, you know, the sort of quality of journalism isn't entirely dead in this country. It's just very much on life support. I actually wanted to show people this quickly, if anyone's never seen this before. When I was thinking about Boris and his wife not being in a tent in Scotland, I was remembered of this beauty.
Freshly ground Arabica beans.
Not this beauty, this is an advert.
9p.
Unbelievable. Who knows about Brexit?
Yeah, quite.
No one's got a fucking clue what Brexit is, yeah? You watch Question Time, it's comedy.
Were you no clearer when Jeremy Corbyn explained
No, I got the
Labour's
clue.
policy?
No one knows what it is. It's like this mad riddle that no one knows what it is, right? So what's happened to that David Cameron who called it on? Let's be fair.
Oh.
I think you're referring to our former Prime Minister.
Yeah, but how comes he can scuttle off? He called all this on.
Yeah.
Yeah?
He
Called
has
it on.
no regrets.
Where is he? He's in Europe, in Nice, with his trotters up. Yeah? Where is the geezer?
Look at that smile.
I think he should be held accountable
Actually,
for it.
I think that's
He should be held accountable for it.
It's a valid point. A lot of people do feel that all politicians on Brexit have based.
That's one of our leading actors, Danny Dye. They're talking about the Prime Minister before last, David Cameron, during the previous debacle, which was obviously Brexit. And I think that captured it for me, just the confusion, the idea of it being a riddle, and the fact that the people who are supposed to be in charge are completely absent. So there is that. So a lot's been happening. Boris has only been back at work since Monday, by the way. What is today? Today's Tuesday, isn't it? Yeah, today's Tuesday. No, today's... See, this is the thing. Everything's falling in on itself. This is amazing. So we've had this going on. And having been watching the nightly news earlier when I was having dinner, I was kind of hoping to have some reassurance that things were finally starting to lock into place and we were getting close to a resolution. Brexit was a fucking mess. That's something else we should talk about, Toto, because I know you're like an expert on the EU and that. That's definitely something else we should talk about. So there's a lot of confusion now that the kids are going to be going back to school in September. And basically no one's sure, should kids be wearing masks? Should they be wearing masks in classrooms? Should they only be wearing them in communal areas in schools? Who has the authority to decide who wears the masks or not? Does it rest with the local authorities? Does it rest with central government? Does it rest with the regional governments? Head teachers are being told to advise. It's just confusion, endless confusion, which is basically the tone of life in the 21st century, apparently. And then there's just been other things happening that have just been slowly like increasing the pressure and crushing me under the weight of its gravity. The next one being this creature. Does anyone know who this is? I suspect Morgan and Bubbleboy will definitely know this. Incomprehensible yelling is basically government policy. Yes. Well, I mean, that is just... Again, sorry, I just became very depressed for a second. If anyone doesn't know, this creature we're looking at is Dominic Cummings. The motherfucker. An evil wizard. He is basically like Rasputin if he was spliced with Gollum. That's effectively what Dominic Cummings is going for. That fucking guy. Yeah. I try not to be someone who makes fun of people's appearances, even if this guy was like beautiful, even if this was like an Adonis. Just thinking about this person, acknowledging that he exists, just makes me uncontrollably angry. Yeah, that's true. Rasputin was cool. He had the beard and stuff. He was a bit goth. That's true. Dominic Cummings is a terrifying figure in a lot of ways. He's pulling the strings. He pulled the strings during the Brexit campaign. Again, as with Boris's nice tie in that other picture, I'll give credit where it's due. He is pretty shrewd. He is a shrewd operator. But I am concerned that he's basically trying to set himself up as a Bond villain. And he has a very, very strange history. Apparently at university, I believe he went to Oxford. He basically used to walk around wearing like a really gaudy tracksuit. Like a Russian gangster, maybe. But apparently he was also incredibly shy and insecure. So he was pulling this trick where he wanted everyone to notice him, but he didn't want to be noticed. Which I guess, as a streamer, I can kind of empathise with that. I don't know. Sorry, my neighbour's shouting about something. So there's a lot of issues here. He pushed very hard for Brexit, not for the good of the country, for the good of himself and the privileged ghouls that fund him. But he's also possibly a eugenicist. I'm trying to find this. As I say, this whole thing was a bit scuffed and impromptu. I should be able to find this though. But basically, I don't know his position on the Jews. I don't think he's an anti-Semite. He's definitely a fascist, but I don't think he's gone that far. But apparently the story goes that once he left university, he did some jobs, and then he basically shut himself away in a literal bunker on his stepfather's estate. I'm probably getting this wrong, but that's what I kind of remember. Where he basically spent like almost a year or so studying all these like weird, abstract, esoteric theories. And he came out with some things over time I mean, well, when the Brexit thing, when the COVID thing kicked off, apparently he was quoted as saying that it doesn't matter if some coffin dodgers die, because he was trying to push the herd immunity thing, which the Trump administration was initially very invested in. Basically, try and get 80% of the population to have built up immunity to the virus so that it will kill it off, as you might hope. And that was the government's original plan. It didn't go that well. It didn't go there. So he's happy for the elderly to die. We can induce from that he's probably very, very comfortable with working class people dying. Hey, the queers, we're definitely going to go. But yeah, he also seems to have a weird thing about IQ. And I really, really wish I'd looked this up first. I don't like The Guardian, because it's the turf newspaper. See, now this is an amazing, especially in the modern age, especially in the 21st century, this is just an incredible subheading. PM's aide dragged further into row over decision to hire advisor with eugenicist views. I mean, where do you even fucking start with this? Like, again, I can't even believe that this is real. And this guy is not elected. This guy is not an MP. He's effectively Steve Bannon before, but if Steve Bannon didn't get kicked from his office. That's what he is. He's British Steve Bannon. Although Steve Bannon, before he got arrested, has been trying to set himself up as like a European Steve Bannon, so I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, Boris Johnson's senior aide Dominic Cummings has been dragged further into the row over Number 10's decision to hire an advisor with eugenicist views after it emerged that he suggested in his own writings that the NHS should cover the cost of selecting babies to have higher IQs. That's literally a paragraph that I just read out loud. Yes, fucking yikes. In a blog post covering his views on the future of designer babies, Cummings said he believed rich would-be parents would inevitably select embryos with the highest prediction for IQ, and floated the idea that a national health system should fund everybody to do this, to avoid an unfair advantage for the wealthy. So at least he was saying that... at least he's trying to get everyone in on it, at least. So again, credit where it's due. I guess the big issue here is that the experts criticised his theories about genetics, largely because it's, as it says here, unworkable, unethical, and amounted, well, it was eugenics. Oh, and this is another thing Cummings was really interested in. He was interested in the idea of bringing misfits and weirdos into Johnson's team. He had this idea that he basically buys into some of the rhetoric you'll see from the right about, academia and things like that. I don't think it's specifically because he's into the cultural Marxism memes, though, to be fair, I wouldn't put it past him. He just has the idea about there are, like, people who are just inherently... Their eccentricities and stuff makes them, like, superior... almost like... They have these abilities to analyse things in, like, creative, unique ways. And they're the people he wants to hire. So he's not interested in qualifications or experience or anything like that. He basically just wants to hire people who are as fucking weird as he is. Yeah, wow. It's just incredible. Again, it just all track. This is the thing, it's such a rabbit hole. And because the US is obviously on the verge of tipping into complete full-on fascism, it's understandable why like this sort of situation doesn't get quite the tension around the world that it should, arguably. But for anyone who is paying attention, this is nothing short of terrifying, because Cummings has a remarkable amount of power within our government. There's whispers of something about him wanting to go to war on the civil service. So basically anyone who works for the government, as I understand it, who isn't like a political appointee, who doesn't come from like the campaign staff or like directly from Tory appointments. They're just people who work for the government, no matter who's in power. He basically wants to ship all these people out and flood it with his own minions. I literally think if he could get away with overthrowing the government, he would definitely do it. It's just, I can't handle it. I really, really can't. It's just, yeah, it just goes on and on and on. So much. Let's talk about Gavin Williamson for a second. We'll go back to the education thing. Second head rollers. Nice. I'm going to allow that comment. Thank you, Bubble Boy. Right on the ball. We will allow cum in the stream. Oh, has anyone heard about, just before we continue, has anyone heard about what's going on with Chud's suspension from Twitch? This is a pro-cum stream. This is a pro-cum stream. I don't know if we can actually show any of that on Twitch. I don't know a lot about the TOS. I guess we'll find out. Does anyone know what's going on? As far as I know, no word back on his appeal yet. I was watching it live. I sort of had one ear on it because I was saying earlier I was doing editing and stuff. And because of all the technical issues I'd been having, I actually literally figured my internet had died or something because it just obviously all went quiet. So what was it? It was Lord of Patriarchy's fans just like nuked it or something. Yeah, Toto. Basically, Chud was talking about a video War Corps or Lord of Patriarchy made about Chud's video about his video or something, or a stream he did that Chud was commenting on. He was commenting on that, so Chud was commenting on his commenting about Chud's commentary on his commentary, and from what I understand, that basically, we assume that someone who's possibly a fan of the internet's most notorious manatee basically snuck in and nuked it. I saw a screen cap, I think, or it might have just been something Chud said about how there was apparently like a banned term in his profile, which I would never have seen. Yeah, that's what I would have thought. I would have thought because he was using, like, you know, words. But, you know, someone else has picked that up, which is really messed up because obviously Chud wasn't the one doing it. And, you know, Chud's not an idiot. He's been doing this for a little while now. So he must know that, you know, presumably that's a line you can skirt without too many issues. Yeah, why would someone follow Lord of Patriarchy? I mean, my assumption is just like some people just like are incel losers who, you know, need like a figure to sort of gravitate around. And given how big and like massive he is, there's a lot of gravity going on there. Yeah, we need to show Chud some love. It's really messed up. It was a good stream as well. It was really fun because obviously LOP is always fun, even if it's tangentially. I don't know. Tory dipshits. I don't even want to talk about this guy, actually, but I guess we're going to have to. Let's take a quick look, at least. If there's actually anything of interest here. Oh, and it goes straight to the exams controversy. Imagine it's like a bit reassuring to the right-wing incels that you can look at least I'm not him. I think he has a projection of confidence that some people might like as well. They might, you know... At least they can say, like, this guy is in a similar position, or like, at least they think he is. But, you know, he's internet famous to an extent. He is very confident where he shouldn't be. So I suppose in some ways that makes him someone you can aspire to be if your standards are low enough. I don't know. But yeah, so there is that. So I can literally do one of these streams every night from now on, and there would not be, we would not run out of content. It just goes on and fucking on. Now, literally, the time we've been talking, probably like 400 other things have happened. Oh, and the other thing is apparently the very racist, bigoted former Prime Minister of Australia is going to become one of our Brexit trade people, which is also unpleasant. I don't know. BC levels increase. We've got some more fascism going on. Yeah, lovely.